I was thinking the other day, though, if there was something I'd like to do outside of what I'm already doing, you know, and ways I'd like to change my life, one of the things I'd like to do is to promote spirituality, actually, not so much meditation.
Yeah.
Because spirituality is cut your own, basically. I like the idea of cutting your own.
Me too.
If you say meditation, it is, even though it can be many different ways of meditating.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's only two of us and we're very different in our approaches and how we see it.
Even though it is like that, it's still a subsection, I would say, of spirituality.
Yeah.
In most people's minds, anyway. And I like the idea of it being sort of open, completely open to interpretation. So yeah, but obviously along with that, I would like to promote meditation as well.
Yeah, lately I've been feeling quite down in the mouth about a lot of what's going on, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does bite me, where I don't want it to, and I just look at things and I go, this is all fucking dark. This is just twisted. But instead of taking that to an even darker place, you need to try and think of ways to make it better, improve it. And the spiritual thing, I think, is what's needed. Spiritual, not religious, spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual.
There's a huge difference.
Creative spirituality.
Yeah.
That's if I could put it in a nutshell, I would like to put it in.
Because I think humanity, as a rule, sorry to cut you in there, humanity as a rule is just my own perception of things. Has kind of hit a void in a way, and we're trying to fill that void with nonsense in this culture now. It's just gone mad, and it's just getting people to think along these lines a bit more again.
Yeah, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
No, I know, this is huge stuff I'm talking about, and I'm not setting out to conquer the world.
We're not saviours.
No, exactly. I'm not the next coming of something. And neither is M, although sometimes he thinks he is, but...
Damn right.
It's just that I think the next saviour is all of us, quite honestly. That's the whole point. The idea of God in human form is all of us.
I don't know about that, but what I do know is instinctively we have a social side and we need to integrate that into our meditative practice, and one of those ways of doing that is through cultural interaction as a meditative exercise, and that really boils down to creativity and expression into the wider society. And whether I do that because I want to heal the world, that's not really my motivation here. My motivation here is just instinct. We have a creative instinct.
Whereas for me, there is a small part of me that does want to heal the world. I can't help it. That's just the way I'm built. I don't, for whatever reason, think that it's entirely possible to do that on my own. But as a human race, as a whole human race, I think it's definitely possible to do that. But, you know, there has to be some people, you know, pushing that process on. And I'd like to be one of those people. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, there's plenty of them on the internet.
There are people who really are trying,
like if you look round, I don't see any round here.
No, exactly. I think, to me, there's definitely, okay, that's one thing, and I'm looking for that online.
Yeah.
But I can't really see it in my everyday life.
And it's
particularly.
It's pretty stark.
Although, having said that, I think I've said this before on the podcast, that the more I do talk to people or try and kind of evoke a conversation like this, the more I'm surprised that people are actually thinking about this stuff. So I'm not sure why there's such an issue with it going forward. I'm not sure what stops people being more open about it. Well, I am, because we haven't been that open about it. You know, it's a conundrum to me.
Well, you know, I think if people were more open about it, you'd see disagreements about certain things. You would see disputes.
But we see that anyway.
Yeah, no. But on the other hand, it's a potential learning environment, and it's just, I think, a question of promoting spirituality in a way that people feel like they can pursue their own path.
Yeah, exactly.
But have access to other people's knowledge.
Yeah.
And not we don't really want to have reality conflicts where
nothing
people are
has to be taken as gospel.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
people are arguing about what is A B or C,
because it's all of the above,
well,
essentially. All of it and none of it.
It's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
As to, if you can demonstrate the truth, then go ahead. But if you can't, then really it's just academic. And it's not. Spirituality it can be academic, but it seems like when it is, no one really benefits. And it puts people off, I think, as well. Like, if you can see just a group of people bickering about the nature of reality, then, I mean, how fucking stupid is that?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. It's utterly bonkers.
So, really, that's why I like meditation, because it's so sort of method-oriented. And so you can't really have a dispute. You can have a dispute of a method if you're doing something together with someone, but if you're just doing it on your own, you can't really have a method dispute.
Anything goes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I like the anything goes approach to spirituality.
So that I'd like to, you need to look after that. And that's something I'd like, if I was promoting it, I'd be very keen to sort of stop that from going down. I would like to see people feeling like that it was their choice, everything was their choice, and they could...
Because it was.
Yeah, because ultimately it was. Yeah. And that we don't have to get sucked in by these magnetic personalities who in the past have...
The guru.
Have taken it upon themselves to try and spread some kind of gospel.
Yeah.
And that's as I said, I'll just repeat myself, that's why I like meditation, because it sort of avoids that quite nicely. It doesn't completely, because there's sort of gospel in approach.
You're your own guru.
Exactly. Everyone needs to be their own guru.
Yeah, that's perfect.
If you're not your own guru and someone else is your guru, well, you're not doing it right. Yeah. And that's me speaking as a guru. Stick that in your guru.
That made no sense.
I'm an anti-guru.
He's an anti-guru guru.
Anti-guru guru.
Yeah.
I've just nullified myself. I've taken all the... I've discredited myself.
Beat that, guru.
Yeah. I'm so enlightened that I've proved myself wrong.
And admitted it.
Yeah, but then... That was wrong as well.
Oh, don't. Getting into Alan Watts territory.
This is where your brain turns off.
Yeah.
Which is what I actually wanted to achieve. So just wanted to talk about the practical side of... I mean, not that what we said isn't practical, but I mean like even more practical. So, for example... How can I put myself across to other people, just anyone, in a way that says, I am interested in what you're... I am someone who's trying to promote creative spirituality, and I'm interested in you as a person, because I'm a promoter of creative spirit. I want you to engage in this kind of creative spirituality if you're not already engaged in it. I would like you to engage in it, and I'm interested in what your spiritual vector is. What would you want to get if you ever went down a spiritual path? You know, is there something that you want to go and explore, spiritually speaking? It doesn't mean have to be, I don't have to be involved, but like, I want to sort of project that.
You see, I think that's great, but it seems to suggest that people aren't already on a spiritual path. And where I differ from you in that is I believe that most people are. Maybe not to the extent that we are, but I think spirituality is something that does reside in everyone, to an extent.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it doesn't.
Yeah,
what I'm saying
just
is
like a spectrum.
Don't forget where we started this conversation about helping people.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so practically speaking, how do you set that up? Because at the moment, we're just sitting here talking. And I don't really think that's really helping anyone, especially not around us in our major environment. And I feel like I'm not that enthusiastic about the internet, as a form of helping people. Because ultimately, people just find what they search for on the internet, which is only ever going to be sort of limited to
their own personal interests. Yeah.
Exactly, and I do think that the human relationship, we are supposed to be around each other and be relating to one another.
In some regard, I guess you could say the internet probably is a hindrance there.
Yes.
Because if we're not engaging with the people around us, we're looking for what we want from people that we don't know online.
Yes.
And it's all a bit
You're just
unbalanced.
Really. Basically that is a recipe to reinforce your own point of view.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be someone out there who agrees with you.
Yeah, or has a similar kind of ethos.
And so really it doesn't lead to that much development. But I'm talking about the human, interactive, human, right here in my living room or on the street or wherever, in the pub or whatever, that person, I know you to a very deep level. I say no. It's more like I feel like I can open up to you and you feel like you can open up to me. So it's like we can have an honest exchange and, cool shit comes out of that. Because actually it's like we're fusing our minds together. But, with most other people that's not the case. And I think part of me wanting to promote creative spirituality is the desire for people, for finding a way to open up and other people to open up to me in a more sort of integrated kind of way and not just being isolated. So it's a part of me my desire to want to reach out to people and make a meaningful contact with, which I feel like I don't really have enough. I mean, I have some, but I don't have enough.
And I don't think you're alone in that, that's for sure. I think this is probably a global problem.
Yes. And that being the case,
I
feel like justified in that being okay for that desire to manifest. And what are the practical steps that I can take to do this? Because I was thinking, what would I say to someone? I could say, well, my name is Martin and I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality. Silence.
And the first question would be, what's that?
And that's exactly the question I want them to ask. What do you think it means?
No, don't do that. You just criticise that very technique.
No. And then I can say, well, for me, what it means is exploration of the self, exploration of existence, exploration of experience, and development due to exploration of you. And you becoming kind of what you want to be. So there's an aspect of desire, but also there's an aspect of healing as well. I think they're two sort of major dynamics. So some people are into...
We could always make it as a sort of social talk and make the basic premise of these talks spirituality, encompassing everything. Because I've noticed that as soon as you do get someone talking about spirituality, most people want to.
People fucking explode, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you kind of make it some kind of social gathering where the basic premise is to talk about spirituality, I bet that would be quite popular.
Yeah, but can you get up in front of a crowd?
You don't need to. I guess you could do it in a more formal way where everyone gets the chance to be up in front of the crowd.
Like a circle.
So you'd have to be a catalyst for that. You'd have to start it off. But then after a while, what would happen is you'd get people wanting to come forward, jumping over each other to come forward even in certain circumstances. And the reason I say this is because when years ago now, I did the Alpha course.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
As soon as you get the ball rolling, all you got to do is give it the first little shunt and then it gains momentum. And then you can't shut people up because actually when people feel comfortable and they realise that they're in an environment that allows them to talk about this stuff, they want to, and it's sometimes very passionate as well.
I think that's if you have like a circle and you go through one at a time and you get people talking and people will talk but there might be some people who don't want to talk in a circle format.
Yeah, but
I think that you should then split it into a different format where you get like a one-on-one kind of thing.
Yeah, you could do lots of different social exercises. You could
do a one-on-one type of thing.
Go a big group or smaller groups and
randomly put people together and then see what they talk about.
See what comes out of it, yeah.
And then those pairs can then come back to the circle and tell people what they talked about using their combined confidence rather than just depending on their own sort of ability to communicate.
But essentially, you don't want it to be too formal, I don't think.
No.
Because it won't end up formal.
But you do need to direct it.
There has to be a slight structure to it, but only slightly, I think.
Like anyone knows who's chaired a meeting, that, you know, sometimes you get disputes and you kind of need to be able to control that. And you don't want it just polarising into us versus them kind of scenario.
No, exactly. No.
And it's not about, as we said before, it's not really about truth anyway, so really you kind of... And then maybe after you've done all that discussion, you can actually think, well, you know, okay, let's put it this on a different way. Well, what kind of exercises, spiritual exercises, can you think of doing, you know? Can you create? And then let's go and do these kind of spiritual exercises and see what happens. Yeah. And then recount our experiences.
I've always also had this notion in my head for a while of doing like a mass meditation.
You know, the thing I don't like about that is that
I don't know why.
It just seems really silly. Like, doesn't it seem silly?
A little bit.
Everyone just sitting there in silence.
But I also think that would be pretty cool.
It would be
if
cool.
you've got a large group of people, eventually, to do that, to sit there with you, that would be pretty cool. It would be a bit of a spectacle, wouldn't it?
I just think, like, yeah, okay, sit in silence, maybe for a period, whilst you're meditating. You're doing like an internal exercise that you're doing on your own, a solo exercise. But, you know, there are also like interactive types of meditative exercises that obviously we should be doing if we're getting together in a group, you know. It's obvious. We shouldn't just be alone in our own mind space necessarily. Part of, I think, of the meditative process is to bring Zen into human interaction as well as just a human isolated experience. There's lots of different ways you can go, and the group can invent different mechanisms and ways it wants to.
I'm sure the more people we have, the more ideas we'll have ultimately. Then it will sort of spread out from there.
So that sounds good. But in order to get someone to even think about attending such a group, and going back to the real street conversion, for want of a better word, like, I have friends, I have lots of friends, I'm sure some of them, quite a lot of them probably have a spiritual aspect that they want to develop, but I don't access that part of them because it's like, that's private. I don't want to go into that with them because, you know, really that's their path, and it should always be their path and not something that I interfere with. But on the other hand, I know that people will benefit from an interaction. So it's all very well having a church, but how do you get people to the church? I'm sorry I keep using sort of antiquated religious dogmatic conversionist terms here, but, you know, I kind of feel like it, unfortunately, it's just what the way I was brought up, and maybe the language doesn't really that exists yet for the proper way to talk about this type of what I actually want to achieve.
Explorative spirituality.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about a conversation, a way of starting a conversation, and that conversation blossoming into actually a spiritual experience in and of itself, perhaps. That's what I'm talking about. And I think maybe, like I said, perhaps the first step is to say, well, I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality. What's creative spirituality? Blah, 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 blah. See what happens. And then you can say, well, creative spirituality to me, like, imagine, you know, you've got a group of people all discussing, talking about what their spiritual vector is, you know. I think you're going to have to start just trying to have a go and seeing what happens, perhaps, just to sort of get into this, like, because obviously, there's no set procedure that you can just go along with, because everyone's different. Yeah. But just knowing perhaps like the kind of direction, being able to set the direction at the first point, and not feeling like, oh, I'm intruding on your consciousness by trying to do that, you know. And that would give me so much of a sense of happiness to be able to connect with people. Yeah. And to be able to reach out to people and just to make the connection, even if it is only momentarily, you know, and then not a lasting connection, you know, because once you've gone over that threshold, that you know that you're welcome back, you know, as long as you had a good time the first time round. Yeah. And it deepens your relationship. Yeah, and that's ultimately what this is all about, really, isn't it? it's part of what it's all about. Yeah, it's part of who we are is social.
Yeah, and I think especially now in these times, we're more and more becoming isolated from each other, and that is to our detriment. And that is, a key point to all of this. It's bringing connection between people back on a deeper level.
Yeah, deeper than it was before. And perhaps it became more and more shallow.
It's very shallow
in our history.
Now. Yeah, it's very shallow.
In my lifetime, even.
Yeah.
And the question is, I guess, do I have the bollocks to turn round to people I've known for years and say to them that I'm interested in promoting creative spirituality? Can I break that pattern?
Can we?
Well, I'm sure we could together, perhaps. But then that would feel like a mob-handed kind of thing, wouldn't it?
What, with just two of us?
Yeah,
hardly a mob.
It's 2 on 1. It's a mob.
Not really.
It's
and why would it be one?
Well, I'm talking about this kind of, we're going back to your group thing. Yeah, that will just work. I guarantee that will work. But the problem is you have the issue of recruitment for groups. Yes, you can advertise and people may just show up. Who knows? Depends how you do it. But ultimately, to me, if I couldn't project that to people that I've known for a while, I would feel it's not good enough. What about all these people I've known for years that I feel like I can't reach out to? But I'm having fucking amazing conversations with random strangers. You know what I mean? It would be good, and I'd like it, but I'd like to feel like, I can do this with people who I've got into a rut with as well. And to be honest, like, there's some of them, I think more that I actually feel like they need that help. Like, obviously there's people out there that need help that I don't know, but there's people in my life that need help, and I don't know how to, or haven't known how to actually go about doing that. But like, just thinking here and now, this kind of idea of creative spirituality, I think, thinking of the people that I'm thinking of, actually enable them. And it would actually make me want to go back to them and converse if I felt like they were engaged in that process. And it's like, what's got me into a rut with these people is it's just like, they just don't want to change, it's almost like stuck.
No, I don't think it's a don't want. I think they're in the same situation as you. They don't know how. You just sat there and said you don't have the balls to do that.
No,
maybe
I didn't
they don't either.
I said, do I? As a question.
Yeah. So they're probably thinking the same thing. Do I? Can I? Have I got the balls?
Well, maybe
to actually be more open about that stuff.
I don't know if they are.
I'm sure
I think
some of them
a lot
are.
are just suffering.
Yeah.
Just suffering.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about how, me in particular, probably. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I'll give it a try and see where I get.
I'd like to do that because I like to talk to people about this kind of stuff. Gets people fired up. People can be quite inspirational if they're given the tools to do so. All people.
Right. I guess since we've both stopped talking, that must be the end of it.
That's the natural end to the tangent we've both been on for the last hour and 19 minutes.